Hey, welcome to the show, Leading and Growing Your Real Estate Business. This is Coach James Short, aka Shorty. And this is a show for those within the real estate industry wanting to lead and grow their real estate business. It's a series of interviews that we conduct for those within the industry. So we're finding out what those leaders are within the industry, what makes them tick, what's their story, what are their strategies, and how to become the leaders and the growers within the industry. But also, it's an interview series with those outside of the industry. I'm always a big believer of looking at a whole different part of the pie rather than just focusing on one part of the pie. Because what it does, it allows you to have a different perspective, allows you to get snippets or golden nuggets from those outside of the industry that can look in the industry and go, there's a different perspective. And so I encourage you to reach out to the guests. I encourage you to lean into these series to find out how can these pieces of information, experiences, stories help you lead and grow your real estate business. It is an honor and a privilege to invite back to the show a man who is a legend himself, Denis Preston from True Color People Solutions. And I thought it'd be great to get Denis back just because the response that we've had, so many people reaching out and the engagement that we've had on social media from his first interview around the profiling, around specific areas of the profiling that he does. You know, we talked about positive psychology, and Dr. Martin Seligman, who talks about positive psychology, looked at psychology many years ago, and he saw that psychology was great for those, you know, if you're feeling, for example, a -7 or a -8 to get you to a -2. But what about those who are already positive and want to go from a 4 to a 5 to maybe a 7 and an 8? And so he's designed these strategies to help you to actually blast through and to really step into that positive aspect and to really look at optimism, looking at how to overcome rejection, and looking at actually how to make decisions based on external resources. So today I thought I'd get Denis back, and there's a series of 3 different topics that we're going to be covering. We're going to break up these series into 3 different episodes. So stay tuned for each one. But today I want to share with you what we're going to be talking about, and that's about how not to feel rejection. And this is the importance of a low kinetic score, which we're going to talk about in the incredible profiling that Denis and his team does. So welcome back to the show, Denis. Great to have you back.
Thank you, James. It's a pleasure to be back, and it's been wonderful that you're exploring the areas that the profiling system can identify for clients and to help them their businesses grow in critical areas. And the first one is around the idea of how do you find super salespeople? And the profiling system we use identifies people's kinetic score, that's their sensitivity and their emotional score, their auditory score, and their visual score. And it's fascinating because our scores go from 0 to 10. And most people, when they see a kinetic score of 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, they think that that person has a bad score and is not going to fit the role. However, it's a reverse of that, actually, when you figure that the kinetic score that's in those low areas, 0 to 4, is actually a bonus if they're looking at the sales area or the telemarketing area or the customer management area inside a real estate business. Why is it that way? Well, when you have high kinesthetics, they are highly emotional, they feel everything that they're involved in, and then when they get rejected in the sales process, feel tremendous pain. And over time, that pain can drive them to get out of sales. If there's a high, as we know, there's a high turnover in the area of, say, sales and telemarketing. And with a high kinetic score, that's not the place to place those people, not in the sales world. So people with a low kinesthetic score are low in emotions, low in sensitivity, and they don't feel rejection pain. That means that if they're presenting to a client and they don't win the account, they don't get upset about it. They really play a numbers game where they keep prospecting, and the more they prospect, the closer it takes them to winning the sale. The low kinesthetic person, because they don't feel any rejection pain, they're not driven away from creating referrals and prospects. The low kinesthetic score person sees the referrals flowing all the time because they are quite comfortable building groups and groups of sources of referrals. So the low kinesthetic score, most people would look at it and throw that candidate away.
Interesting.
However, when we see a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 kinesthetic score, we go, wow, this person's got a career in sales or telemarketing if they want to.
So if an employer actually gets this wrong, and one they don't profile, but they do an interview with someone and they think that this person is, great because they're really emotional, they're really excited, and they're demonstrating all those high emotive trends and traits. How could this potentially damage a business and the role that they're actually applying for?
Yeah, well, the critical thing is that when we've got lots of statistics from Dr. Seligman they've measured the performance of low kinesthetic scores in about 10 different industries in North America. And the lower the score, the higher the sales revenue that person brings in. So wow. They've got statistics, and I've got a copy of it. I'll send it on to you, James. And they've included real estate because it's obviously a huge industry in the US. But when you see people that are hired in the right roles, the company gets to see the rewards of profits. And when, for example, Brett Kelly from Kelly and Partners sees scores of 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, he immediately thinks of what areas he could put that person in terms of generating sales and revenue.
Wow.
Now, every other business that looks at those scores, and there's other ways of developing those scores, but every other business not interview that client, they would think. So big advantage for a real estate owner that he could have a monopoly on the local industry in sales because his competition wouldn't be looking at those people.
Interesting. So what would be some steps to, I guess, overcome or implement this strategy to help owners, principals to really get a good grip on this strategy to boost their sales team?
Yep, there's a great, and you and I know that Dr. Seligman's all about people learning optimism and growing their optimism. It's the same thing with growing the lower scores in any other areas. So if, for example, someone's got a low score in overcoming challenges, there's 2 areas that with positive psychology, we go into the ABCDE model, which covers adversities, beliefs around those adversities, the consequences of those beliefs, and then disputation. And this is where you and I as coaches come in, where we look for the solutions and the alternatives and options that people have. And that system energizes the employees and helps them grow their optimism and grow the revenue that they're responsible for. So
I love that ABCDE method. I've been using it and it's just absolutely game changing. Like it just completely reframes someone's belief around their adversity and therefore their consequence around that belief. And it's just having some huge shifts with people's results. It's absolutely a phenomenal strategy that any business can implement. Where like to find out more around that method, but also more about to get the profiling underway, where should they go?
They go to you and me, maybe if that's practical. If not, great book, Authentic Happiness by Dr. Martin Seligman. And I've just sent actually some information off today to another client, and it's in chapter 6. And that's where the ABCDE model is, the exercise is explained in there. Also, some of the parts of the profile are in there. And maybe some of the NLP material that you and I have been fortunate to access. The timeline therapy is a very similar way of handling or overcoming objections. It's rather interesting. If someone says to me that they've tried every way possible to hire the right people, I just do the ABCD exercise on them, and we get down to disputation, and I show them then some of the scores, and I show them like Abigail, and how Abigail is the champion for 3 teams now of 10 salespeople down in South Australia that's been built down there over the last 12 years. And it's probably some of the biggest sellers of real estate in Australia. But I like to put the owners of the business that say they can't hire the right people through the ABCD exercise, because they get to learn it the way one of the candidates might, that's overcoming pessimism or overcoming low productivity or whatever.
Love it. Love it. All right, fantastic. Well, thank you, Dennis, for that episode. And I look forward to tuning in to our next part of the series when we look at how being extremely externally referenced can make a huge impact on your decision-making process. Back shortly.
Well done. Well done.